Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a chess show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and our guest today is one and only Professor Ken Regan. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Yep. Thank you very much for having me on again.
Yeah.
I'm watching the Buffalo Bills game in person in Miami, my wife's birthday present. So,
Wow. First of all, happy
against
birthday to her. And,
Mhm.
I'm impressed with this just finished 960 chess in St. Louis.
Right. I
And
have two games from there to show. Yep.
excellent. And I'm under the feeling that Garry Kasparov he held his own, and if it's remarkable because in chess 960 when he was at his prime, haven't even practically existed at the time. And what's remarkable is that it's a relatively new form of chess for him,
hmm
but so for other participants as well. And so they're more or less on equal terms. So the opening preparation is out, and they start from completely random positions. And he was able to hold his own. Ken, do you think if he would practice a little bit more on 960 chess, he could become a contender for the world championship in this form of
Well,
chess?
yeah, if there were a world championship in 960 case chess, what I heard said about him, I think this was in not in his introduction. So I should tell you, I just came back from St. Louis, where the
Yeah.
St. Louis Chess Conference was held on the heels of the U.S. Championships and before this tournament. And Garry Kasparov was one of the three keynote speakers, Judith Polgar and Maurice Ashley being the others. And Kasparov gave a wonderful lecture, which I took notes from. But it was said about him that he is retired, except Chess 960 is the only format that he plays still with some regularity in these tournaments in St. Louis in particular. So, but yes, he reached an even score. He was actually on a plus score entering the final day, but he lost two consecutive games. I think to Aronian and maybe Caruana, and then won his last game against Sam Sevian to regain a 500 record. And that's the game I'll show because it shows some instances of how judgment in chess can overcome the calculational tiredness of being in 160s.
Yeah, let's take a look at the game.
Okay, so let me share my screen and here we go. Present. Um, Share screen. I'll share the whole screen, I guess. Um, let's see. Oh wait, ha ha ha. Actually, it's not letting me share the whole screen. So let me. No, here we go. Entire screen there. Okay, and we're away, and I shall avoid the infinite regress. I was showing the end of the game, but here it is: Garry Kasparov against Sam Sevian. Do you see the board?
Wow, very impressive.
Okay. So this is obviously a different arrangement. And one immediate feature of this arrangement that stands out is that the two bishops of both players rake the queen side. And in
Hmm.
this game, they are going to take turns exerting their influence. And the crux of this game is a question of forethought and judgment. Okay. The game was after that point was far from perfect. But here we go. Okay, so I mean when your king's not on e8, you can play like this as black with the f pawn. So now already the center is open for both respective pairs of bishops. Okay, so white has a little initiative. In the other game I'm going to show between Caruana and Nakamura, we're going to see a position where the engine gives black a non-trivial edge after only four moves. But here, white keeps the early initiative, but black does a pretty good job of neutralizing it. So white is building up slowly, as one would do in a Reti system, and there the Reti bishop on h1 is showing its influence. And it's an interesting feature that black has not yet needed to support the c5 pawn. Its only support can come from d6 or b6 or knight a6, but that would be uncomfortable. However, white's knight on e3 means it's not attacked at the moment. Okay. So here we go. Let's, by the way, this, it bears note, this is castling in chess 960. Fischer castling rule is, and it's the kings between the rooks. The king goes to the destination square of queenside castling, which it is already on. And then the rook completes the move of queenside castling. So there we are. That is a legal move in chess 960, and white could do the same thing. Okay, now this is maximum, early maximum influence for white's bishop, supporting by the knight, but black has a way of striking back, because black is going to now leverage this rook d8 placement and start striking back in the center, and black's bishops are very well placed to support this effort. The only drawback is a backward e-pawn, but the e-pawn at this moment can actually very easily go to e5, so that's not even a consideration yet. So white actually backtracks, and here comes the e-pawn. Okay, so now black's bishops are exercising maximum influence and justifying this move in the center. Moreover, white has a very weak square on d3 that black is more or less threatening to plant pieces on, because black can maybe open the d file or play e4. White's pawns on c3 and f4 are preventing knights from coming into d3 for the moment, but that might not be the case completely. Okay, so now white does the queenside castling move, and the engine actually judges that a mistake. The engine thinks that white should have actually fearlessly opened up the center and then braced for whatever black was going to do, because this is a fairly solid defensive wall. You just have to worry about losing the d3 square, which this bishop on h1 is not well placed to defend. However, white did the castling rule, hoping to maybe get d3 or d4 in himself. And now Kasparov doesn't crack the whip. Okay, and it's not Kasparov, I'm sorry, Sevian doesn't crack the whip. And maybe Sevian makes a misjudgment, even from this point. I'd like to know how far ahead they saw. So this is a very sensible move. You do have to calculate that after d3 takes, that black center is not going to cave to white's pressure. As black can just calmly play king b8 and then decide which advances are most appropriate. However, black played for an immediate resolution of the game, exchanging queens, and I'd say, with the bishops and the rooks maximally placed in the center, this does look very good, and d4 looks very strong. Although you do have to calculate that, white can play bishop takes c6 and knight a7 check. Okay, that actually self-traps the knight, but it's a motif to watch in this position. However, I think that what Sevian looked ahead to was already the question. So the d4 move is actually a sacrifice. White amazingly has 4 pieces on d4. Black has 4, actually. Black has the knight on c6, but that knight on c6 can be taken. So, but what Sevian planned was to bring his other knight in, and that finally now has opened the door to this d3 square. So this is a pure judgment call. Black is going to win an exchange. It's not convenient for white to guard d3. You can't guard d3 and a2 at the same time. And losing a2 also loses key squares on the queen side. So white, okay, exchanges that knight, but now we resume all the threats. Okay, now here we go, knight d3 check. And so what is the evaluation of this position? Black has won an exchange. White is 2 pawns for it. Both sides have their bishops. Can black take advantage and keep white from joining pawns up to the pawn on c5? And the answer for the most part is no. Okay. Now, The engine actually wants black to play a very weird move, a5, which would not occur to me, except that it is a way of getting that pawn out of take. It just looks like a very weak and pointless move. The other thing that's going on in this position is that white's knight is going to come to d6, and black's bishop on h8 cannot stop it. And a knight on d6 is worth the exchange, let alone that it's going to win the exchange right away unless black plays king b8. Now, this is mystery of chess. Guarding your pawn on a7 and getting out of a fork has to be the most natural move you can make. Yet, well, at chess.com's analyses of question marks need to be taken with a little grain of salt. White can play c6 here right away, and that instantly puts black under attack by white's 3 minor pieces, which are doing more than rooks in this position. But nothing wrong with knight d6 either. Now, the engine doesn't like this move. It says bishop f2. And the reason is that bishop e3 allows black to make a counter sacrifice. Okay, so first we try to undermine the knight. Black gets rid of one of white's pawns, and one might try to do something active. I don't actually understand what f5 is about here. Maybe, oh no, I guess getting the f4 diagonal. That's what it's about. So, and then maybe a pin on the e file and black's blocks with bishop e5. Okay, however.
There's also threat of bishop g5.
Oh, you're right. Yes, you're right. You're right. That's the most immediate threat. Yes. So hence black sacrifices right away. And now black has actually equalized the pawns. Black has won the a2 pawn and now this pawn temporarily back. White can't play knight takes f5 because black has bishop b3 check. And then white's rook on d1 will fall. Okay. So the engine still judges that white has a fair bit of an edge with a bishop d5 especially. The white has solidified the knight on d6. However, at this point, Kasparov was down to under 4 minutes, and Sevian had only a minute and a half, of course, with the increment, but it's only a 10-second increment. And Sevian actually spends a long time. This is a classic move to try to liquidate pawns. And in particular, if black can trade the bishop off for the knight and liquidate pawns, this will leave a rook ending. So that's what now the knight is undermined. We have a great hope of being able to trade it off, and here it comes. Okay, so now it's at this point that both players make misjudgments about the rook and pawn ending. So I don't think Kasparov's moves are totally accurate, but Sevian. So white has now won a pawn. So the thing that black needs to do is to make counterplay right away with the h-pawn, because this is not a 2-pawn position where black can hold in the normal course of events, as it is when there are 2 rook's pawns, or even some positions with the rook's pawn and a knight pawn. This is a rook's pawn and a center pawn, and white's modus operandi is very simple. Keep black confined to watch the a-pawn and get a Lucena type position, with black's king cut off with the center pawn. So the only way that black can defend against this is to advance the h-pawn, and we'll just follow the line, the computer line here, because it's indicative of how black can get counterplay. Okay, well, white's threatening mate, so you can check and do this. All right, so let's instead make white's normal move to king d5. Okay, well, now black can get counterplay over here. And the point is that black's h-pawn in some crucial positions is going to prevent white from the getting the Lucena type setup.
Yes.
So if white plays rook a7 right away, then we just take it, and play rook e6. Okay, so white has to go king f5 over here to get it. And now actually white's king had to retreat, so now black can actually bring the king in front of the pawn, and it will be a very clear draw. So, okay, but that did not happen. Instead, Sevian advanced the king instead of making the and now this is now, according to the engine, a winning position for white. Black has lost a crucial tempo. So now black does this type, but never actually advances the pawn. And this is now a very elementary win for white.
Oh, yeah.
So Kasparov actually knew. There's a funny incident actually right here. Kasparov made a gesture that looked like offering a draw. He was actually offering black resignation. But, in any event, the knowledge of 50 years of competitive chess certainly came through in this game. Okay, so the other game that I'm going to show, so more power to Kasparov. And by the way, let me just take a look at the standings to show that actually both Fabiano Caruana and Hikaru Nakamura excelled. Okay, truly excelled here. So let's see if I can get all of the rounds here, because 9-round tournament against the world's top players. The Fabiano Caruana scored 7.5 out of 9, undefeated, conceding draws only to Lavanaronian, Lavanaronian, Sevian, and Lenier. So the key thing, however, though, Hikaru Nakamura was almost as good, conceding draws only to Gary and to Grigory Oparin, but he lost to Caruana. So let's take a look at that game.
Yeah, crucial game.
This is now, so a different setup. Actually, fairly reminiscent of the classical setup, I guess. Well, not really. And so here's the funny thing. Already, Stockfish is giving black, okay, was 0.4. Now it's slipped to 0.35 with the very natural move, just bringing the knight here. And one motif already in this position is that if white plays d4 without supporting it with c3, then black will get the wonderful e5 square. So anyway, instead, however, though, Nakamura played in the center. Black is still certainly equalized, then played g5. Now, the fault of g5 is that white is going to exercise a plan that is going to give black very bad dark squares. Okay. And the bishop on b8 is going to be the worst piece on the board. So this is not necessarily helping that kind of development. There you go. So white expands on the queen side. White is, mounting a queen side attack. And probably black maybe should not have allowed white to get the pawn to a5. So maybe in this move already, black should think about playing a5 himself. Let's see, what does the engine say to a5? Actually says that it makes d5 more virulent. So maybe I had to take that back. The fact that white's queen is on e1, and even though white can't get a knight to b3, it's still something black has to watch, is a determinant in this position. Okay, so white got a5, which is usually an advantage in this kind of position. And now white has driven a wedge into black's position with d5, and you can already see the danger to the bishop on b8, which incidentally cannot be developed by playing a6 and bishop a7, because white very cleverly induced black to place the light squared bishop there. Okay, so now black actually auto-entombs himself. Here comes white. So now white is full on with a attack against black's king. Now, it must be said that black can castle in this position. So it is actually, I think, yeah, the rooks didn't move. It is actually a legal move for black to play this. This is castling on the king side. And let's see, but let's see now, the chess 960 board is not allowing me to play that for black. So sorry, let me rejigger the game and see if there is a oh no, I know why. It's because the intervening squares are not empty. That's okay. So no, in order to make that castling move, black's knight and queen would have to move. So let me just actually check that just for fun. Let me just play some moves here. I'll play some non-smooths for white and just bring the bishop back and now see if it'll let me play the king move. Yes, it does.
Yes.
Okay, so the intervening squares, as with normal castling, do have to be empty. Okay, however, black tries fighting back, does not want to be smothered by white's pawns. Okay, but now pin on the A file, and white's plan is actually clear. White has the typical Ruy Lopez advantage of being able to pin black down and invade via the A file. So black plays C5 to prevent white possibly from playing C4. It is the best move, but already the engine says black is in dire trouble. And the rest of the game is just very smooth execution by Carolina. Okay, black did trade one piece on the A file, but white's knight leaps into the game, and that's just going to be like a monkey jump into black's position, supporting an invasion by the queen, which is coming soon. And black's bishop on C7 is an utter awful spectator, and can't even dream about getting out via D8 because black's pawn on G5 is in the way. Okay, so black does have to shore up points like D6. And here comes white's knight. Now, so now the knight is coming into C6, which either is going to remove black's light squared bishop, or it's going to force a trade by another piece, and then black's light squared bishop will not be able to stay on B7. So black will be less able to defend the square A8. Here we come. Black avoids taking. Now white opens up a second front, which is what you can do in this kind of position. And the engine says, that knight takes C6 was badly timed and black should just sit. But here we go. Well, it looks like black has gotten a little bit of the effect of castling, but the back rank is just too weak. And in fact, there is ultimately no way for black to defend the bishop. Black does for a little bit, but finally here comes white's other knight into the game. A4, C3, B5 on the menu. Okay, black actually sacrifices a pawn because knight B5 would absolutely smother black's position. So bishop on C7 gets a very brief burst of air, but only one square because the pawn on C5 blocks the way. Okay, we open. Now white locks down this side of the board. And the reason white can do that, having calculated fairly well, is that there was ultimately no way for black to stop the intrusion into the position. White is just going to play queen A3 and bishop F3, and then eventually play to get rid of black's B6 bishop and advance C7. This loses right away, but ultimately there was nothing black could do. Okay, so a real crush. Hikaru resigned from the position. Yeah, so I mean, with chess 960, you do get strategic play all the way from early moves of the game. So that's the thing mainly to commend it. And I guess I can just show, this looks like a very dashing game. So it is worth showing the winner against Gary Kasparov. And I'll go more quickly through this. So, boy, this looks like the way I used to play as a Sicilian defensive
Yeah,
player. Well, not very adeptly. So White, I think, already does have a pretty permanent advantage in this position. I used to play this structure. The outpost on d5 is not that important in this position. Oops, that was a little premature. Engine likes White to just prepare, but okay. Okay, Kasparov got counterplay, and actually Kasparov is doing very well now. So yes, was a slash and dash game, but obviously chess players don't have the computer. Tactics sometimes are hard to visualize. So, for instance, Kasparov doubtless considered the sacrifice f4 and rejected it, because it looks like White can just chop and chop at the bishop. But now Black is ready to play f4, and does play f4. But it's not as strong as it would have been some time ago. Okay, now this, I must say, this does look like Black is about to embark on a winning attack. So how did Kasparov not win this game? Okay, knight f4. Simply misguesses. Okay, so let's see. So White could have had equality with bishop f1. Gosh, this looks winning for Black. Okay, and now actually it's not. The engine says that this is now winning for White. So why? This is the mystery of chess. The reason why is Black's knight on c7 is hanging. That's why. So Black misjudged, thinking that I can hang the knight on c7 because I'm crashing through on f2. And indeed, against any move other than knight f1, Black does crash through. But this move drives Black away from the f2 square. And now White is able to capture. Now Black does not have the attacking prospects that were there when Black was able to take on f1 and play queen f2 check. So in fact, this was the end of the game. Kasparov resigned because it's now White threatening checkmate. So yeah, a crunch time position, and Kasparov was down to 30 seconds at the end.
Yeah,
So,
in many positions he was shorter time.
Yeah, so lots of entertainment and fight with this kind of chess. I wish there were enough of it to build large training sets with.
Yeah. I think that very soon the world will move, or at least top players will move into Bronstein chess.
Yeah, I've mentioned that I have my own version of Bronstein chess.
You do? Oh, okay.
Oh, let me show this. This is
Yes, please.
let me get this. Yeah. So actually, let me present my screen again and show you how to find it. So I proposed this a long time ago on the Chess Variants web pages, which is maintained by Hans Bodlander, and he is a theoretical computer scientist in algorithms in Holland, exactly in my field. Also, chess fan. So you Google baseline chess with Fischer rules, and so baseline chess is a variant, but here we go, baseline chess with Fischer rules. So proposed by me. So as with Bronstein chess, you start with just the pawns, and White places a piece on the back row, and the players alternate doing this. You do not have to keep symmetry. So the initial stage actually favors Black a bit. Most in particular, if Black is playing for a win, Black can assure having the kings on opposite sides of the board. You obviously just have to place the bishops on different colors, and also the king between the rook to set up the precondition of the Fischer castling rule. So the one thing that's added to Bronstein chess is the Fischer castling rule.
I see.
So this is not random. and has many more starting configurations, although it's possible that players would converge to configurations with the rooks in the center and the bishop's fianchetto. Although, again, there's one comment, follow-up comment somewhere here. M. Winter was showing that engines, in fact, do not like having the bishops in the corners. Okay. So there's been some commentary on this, long time ago. But I did not get a chance to try to convince Rex Sinkfield to bankroll the world's top players playing this way. So, and maybe the problem is it would really, people would converge to a set of book positions.
Can you what's the problem is that it would be difficult to implement when you have a starting position and how you would describe the move. Let's see, okay, you have pawns on both sides, and let's see white's first move. So your first, knight F1, for example, or king B1, for example.
Right.
Then how, the existing computerized infrastructure, how they would treat the first move of white, the empty board, at least empty of pieces. All of a sudden, king B1, how existing...
sure, it would require programming to allow
it. It would require some programming for sure. But if that could be done, I think that would be a fantastic thing, because people will have to considerably spend a lot of their time and experience to figure out what are the first 8 moves would be. Ideally.
Yeah.
Because in the set position, I even noticed that they had 5 or maybe 10 minutes before the round, so they could practice the first few moves here and there. And here you cannot practice anything.
That's right.
There's so much.
You can have pet setups, you see.
Yeah, there's so much unpredictability.
And maybe white, especially with the first move, can do a pet setup and not have to worry what black does.
Yeah. And it would be very interesting to see. The game starts with king E1 exclamation mark.
Yeah, yes.
That would be quite interesting. And king E8 is a question mark because you're going into symmetrical position, you're chicken out from the fight, and it's definitely a question.
I did play 2 games of this versus Hikaru Nakamura in 2007. When I visited the U.S. Open, and of course when he was relatively young. And I actually was probably winning in the first game. He was sort of very surprised, but then he crushed me in the second game. And Jan Elvest also beat me, and Jan Elvest put all his pieces on the classical squares. So he did, in fact, start with king E1, and bishop F1 and bishop C1. Said, yeah, hey, it's a good initial position. So
maybe he's right.
Yeah.
And what's happened if both players will arrange their pieces in the classical chess pattern?
Yeah, then you can play classical chess. It has
classical chess. It's the worst case scenario. Classical chess. Well, Ken, thank you so much for your expertise, your games that you showed. And I'm looking forward to see you again next week, same place, same time.
Okay, thank you very much. Yep.
Thank you very much, and all the best to all our listeners. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.